If this were 800 years ago, when the palace of Jianle was at its peak prominence, 8,880,000 merits would be nothing. The crown prince could throw it out without batting an eye. But the present wasn't the same as the past, and all his temples in the mortal realm had long since been burned to the ground. He had no believers, no incense, and no offerings. There was no need to say more on the subject. Either way, he had nothing, absolutely nothing. He crouched by himself on the side of the main street of the heavenly capital, feeling distraught for a while before suddenly remembering. He'd ascended for almost 3 days now, but he still hadn't entered the communication array of the upper court. He'd forgotten to ask what the verbal password was. The heavenly officials of the upper court had gotten together and set up an array that could instantaneously allow the consciousness to communicate and pass on messages. Once ascended, one must enter the array, but a password was required for the consciousness to find the designated channel. The last time Xie Lian had entered the array was 800 years ago, so he didn't remember the password at all. He let his consciousness scatter to search and saw a channel that seemed to be what he was looking for, so he went in randomly. The moment he entered, he was blasted by an outpouring of crazed yelling from all directions. "Place your bets and no take-backs! Let's wager on how long our Royal Highness the Crown Prince can last before going down again!" "I bet 1 year." "1 year is too long. Last time it was only 1 incense time. It'll be 3 days this time, I think. I put my merits down on 3 days. 3 days!" "Don't, you dimwit! 3 days is almost over already. Do you even know how to gamble?" Xie Lian silently exited the array. He'd entered the wrong one. That couldn't be it. The heavenly officials of the upper court of heaven were all bigwigs who guarded over a given region. They were widely known by every household and kept occupied by a myriad of state affairs. Since they were deities who ascended respectably in keeping with their status, they were generally more reserved and often put on airs. Xie Lian himself had been the only one who dragged out every single heavenly official inside the communication array to greet them out of excitement the first time he ascended, incomparably earnest and exceedingly thorough in introducing himself from head to toe. After he exited that array, he went on another random search and entered a different one. This time he relaxed, thinking to himself, "How quiet, it's probably this one." Just then he heard a voice softly say, "So, your Highness is back?" It was a very comfortable voice, the sound soft and gentle, the tone decorous. However, if one were to listen closely, one would discover that the voice was quite cool and indifferent, the same as the sentiment it carried, causing the soft gentleness to turn into something more malicious in intent. Xie Lian had intended to enter the array in a proper manner, then lie low, but since the other party had already addressed him, he couldn't keep pretending to be deaf and mute. Besides, he was still delighted that there were actually heavenly officials in the upper court who would willingly start a conversation with a god of misfortune like himself. Thus he quickly answered, "Yeah, hello everyone, I'm back again." Yet, little did he know, after this exchange, every single heavenly official who was currently inside the communication array perked up in their ears. That heavenly official said languidly, "Your Highness certainly ascended with tremendous force this time, huh?" Within the upper court of heaven, emperors, kings, generals, and chancellors were everywhere, and heroes flowed like water. In order to become a deity, one must first achieve greatness. Within the mortal realm, those who had obtained accolades or ones in possession of great talent had always had a better chance at ascension. So it wasn't an exaggeration to say that rulers, princes, princesses, and generals weren't a rarity here. Everyone was a darling of the heavens. Everyone acted courteously with each other, so they would address one another as Your Majesty, Your Highness, Lord General, Alliance Chief, Head Chief, whatever, as long as the title was flattering. However, the words from this one heavenly official seemed to have something lurking beneath their tone. Although he said, Your Highness this, Your Highness that, Xie Lian couldn't sense a bit of respect from him at all. It was more like he was poking him with a needle. There were also several heavenly officials inside the communication array who were authentic crown princes, and they were feeling the hairs on the back of their necks rise from such an address, incredibly uncomfortable. Xie Lian could tell that this other party didn't come with good intentions, but he didn't want to fight, so he chose to run instead. He smiled. It wasn't too bad. However, that heavenly official wouldn't give him the chance to run. He said tepidly, "It's Your Highness after all, so it wasn't too bad for you, but my luck doesn't seem to be as good." Suddenly, Xie Lian heard a private message from Ling Wen. She said only one word. Bell. Instantly, Ye Lian understood. So this was the martial god who was hit by the bell.